Hello everyone and welcome back to my kitchen. When you're in Mexico around the holidays, around Christmas time, certainly as you get closer to Three Kings Day there, that's the big day when all the kids get their gifts in Mexico on January the 6th, you will find every bakery and a whole lot of restaurants that offer Three Kings cake or Three Kings bread. In Mexico, it's called a rosca de Reyes, or a wreath of the kings. And I'm going to show you how to make a really beautiful version of it. It's kind of like a light brioche, if you can think about it that way, that has certain flavorings in it. But then the toppings, you put the same topping on a streusel like you would find on a concha. You decorate it with some candied citrus. You use some ate de membrillo or the guayaba or the quince paste or the guava paste on top of it. It's just a really beautiful tradition. And I really want to show you how to make a great version of it. So we're going to make the dough first. I have already measured into the bowl of a stand mixer both bread flour and all-purpose flour here. And now, oh, by the way, I'm not going to give you any measurements because I will probably misspeak and then we'll have to do this whole thing over again. But just know that the recipe that goes with this video, it has all the exact measurements that I'm using here today. Okay, so in goes the sugar. And next I'm going to put in the salt and the yeast. Now I have to talk to you about this yeast here. So this is very active, dry yeast. And I will tell you that if you're a little worried about how fresh your yeast is, I would suggest warming the milk, putting the yeast in the milk with maybe just a touch of sugar. Let it set, but this is very lightly warmed, not super hot milk. Let it sit for just a few minutes and see that it's going to start bubbling. That tells you that the yeast is really active. I know that this is fresh yeast and it's active. So I'm going to just measure it right in with the dry ingredients there. And then I'm going to give one of the flavorings that we're going to be using for this here. Oh, by the way, that was a tablespoon of yeast. So if you're working with the little packages, just know that's about a package and a half of the yeast. Now, using a microplane grater, I am going to grate the zest of an orange in here. That's one of the things that perfumes this. So I'm going to tap that to get all of the last little bits of the orange zest off of that all set there. And the second perfumey thing that's going to go in here is orange flower water. Now, this is an optional thing, so you don't have to hunt all over the world for it, but it is available online, by the way. And I'm going to take just a half a teaspoon of this. Now, if you think orange flower water smells like oranges, you'd be completely wrong. It smells like perfume. It smells just like the blossoms of an orange tree. It's really remarkable stuff and used a lot in holiday baking in Mexico. So I'm going to pour the milk in here. Really no need to warm it if we're sure that the yeast is in good shape there. And then the last thing of the liquid ingredients that I'm going to put in here are 3 eggs. And then I'm going to put in 2 egg yolks. So I'll just separate these guys out like that. Or if you want to get really fancy, you can do it into your hand like that. Hands are very soft things, and it's a great way to separate the yolks, especially if you have a lot of yolks to do. That way, we'll set those guys to the side. Now, I'm just going to use this dough hook of my stand mixer to just give this an initial stir, just so that when I put the mixer on, it doesn't throw all the flour up in my face. I've done that way too many times. So we'll get this thing started like that. Okay, now, this is kind of a heavy dough. So I'll put the dough hook on and then just start it on a low speed for a couple of minutes. And then I'm gonna let this go for about 10 minutes or so at this sort of medium-ish speed. When I'm working with the dough hook, I don't like to get it too fast at all, but I could go up one more notch here and just let it do all the kneading for me so that I don't have to be physically working on kneading it. But if you don't have a mixer like this, feel free to do this on the tabletop. It's kind of a heavy, sticky dough, but when you watch the professional bakers do all that by hand, their hands are completely covered with the dough when they're kneading it. But I'll meet you back here when this is ready to put the butter in. Okay, this is a sticky, heavy dough, just as I said, and it's been going for its 10 minutes or so now, but I wanted to show you what it looks like. It's also wet, but if you reach in and pull it, it should stretch before it has a breaking point in there, but that's really what it looks like when it's right, okay? So I'm going to put this down and turn it back on. And this is room temperature butter. I would call it cool room temperature butter. And it shouldn't be melty, but it should be soft enough that it can get incorporated into this sort of heavy dough. So you're gonna let, each time you put one or two pieces in there, let it go for another 45 seconds or so, just to make sure that it's getting fully incorporated before you add the next batch of it. This will take several minutes to get all this butter into the dough. Okay, last piece of butter goes in there. When I see that this is fully incorporated, then I'm just going to walk away from it for a few more minutes, maybe 4 or 5 more minutes, until it looks even more elastic. That's what we're really looking for here. Then I'm just going to let it sit for an hour. It'll start to rise a little bit. Going to cover it with plastic, put it in the refrigerator, and you've completed day 1 of making your Rosca de Reyes. We're going to let it sit overnight because that's where you get all the flavor development, and it'll be so much easier to work with after it has risen in the refrigerator overnight. I'll meet you back here when that's done. Okay, I'm going to tell you the truth. I actually started this one yesterday so that we could continue on with our filming here. You'll notice a few of those things as we go along here because we've made things in different stages just to make filming go a little bit faster. Now, what I am going to show you next is how to form this whole thing. And this dough is so much easier to work with after that long, slow rise and chill in the refrigerator. Okay, so I am going to lightly dust the countertop here and then start pressing this guy out. Now, the first thing that we are going to do is to get it about 6-7 inches or so across, and then we're going to extend it to about 30 inches in length. That's why I have a tape measure sitting over here. It's one I keep in my kitchen all the time, because when you're doing any kind of baking, you want to make sure to follow all of the directions exactly. Baking is much more of a science than cooking, so never just wing it when it comes to measurements at all in baking. Okay, now I've gotten it started here. So I'm going to take a rolling pin, one of my favorite rolling pins in the whole wide world. It is a small one that I got from a cook in Baja, California. It's made of ironwood, and it is used a lot for making flour tortillas. That's why it's a smaller diameter, but it works really good for this. Now, our goal here is to extend the dough, to that 30 inches without getting it any wider. So you'll see that as I'm working on it like this, I'll pick it up, lay it down again, and bring it in a touch on the sides. Okay, I'm at 25 inches here. I'm kind of stretching it as I pull it up to elongate it just a little bit, and I'm really not using any more flour because I'm going to roll this up like you would roll up cinnamon rolls. Okay, this is the right thing now. And I'm going to pick the whole thing up and turn it around a little bit more so that I can work with it here. Remember, it's kind of a stretchy, sticky dough. At this point, I've got a little tear in it right here, but that's going to be just fine. Even out the ends, this end's a little bit thicker here. There we go. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is to roll this up. And start by just rolling one roll over all the way down, like that. And then I usually go back the other direction, rolling it up. And then once I've gotten about a third of the way through this, I'll start doing this little technique of pulling it a little bit as I'm rolling it. Pull and tuck, pull and tuck. Pull and tuck all the way down here. That creates some surface tension on it, and it will mean that it will stand up taller and rounder if I use that pull and tuck. Now, I'm about 2/3 of the way through this now. And remember, I didn't use hardly any flour, so everything's sticking to itself here. But now I'm going to put the little babies. And I haven't mentioned the babies at all. But in Mexico, when you eat your Three Kings bread, if you receive the baby, if you find the baby in your piece, then on the 2nd of February, Dia de la Candelaria, you have to make tamales for all the people that you were with when you got your little baby in the Rosca de Reyes. So I've got these little ones that are intended for this. You can buy them online very, very easily. And because this is a large rosca, I'm going to put 4 of them in there. So you have 4 chances to get one of these things, and maybe you'll have 3 extra people to help you make tamales for the Dia de la Candelaria. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, and 4 in there. And now they make multi-ethnic little babies for this. And now I'm going to roll those guys on up in here. Tucking, tucking, tucking. Just make sure that the little babies don't stick out or anything. Try to even it out. So I see that it's a little bit thicker right in here. So I'm going to pull that, elongate that just a tiny little bit. And then I'm going to pull it all around here to form my rosca. In order to pull this together easily, I'm just making a little well there, inserting this part in there and then covering it over with some of the dough. It's sticky dough, so it'll all stick together. But it won't be very pretty, but you'll see in the decorating that we're going to cover that part of it up. And then on a parchment-lined rimmed baking sheet, or I'm using some silpats here to do that. We'll just pick this guy up and sit it down like that. I'll use the plastic that I had over the dough when I refrigerated it overnight to get a loose little tint over this so that it doesn't dry out. We'll put it in a warm place. You want something about 80 degrees or so in your kitchen, so put it in the warmest part of your kitchen, and we're going to let this rise until double in bulk. Very important that it rises, and I'll show you exactly how to determine if it's ready or not when we come back. I forgot to show you this one thing, and it's really an important thing. Before you let this rise, before you actually flip it over onto its good side, you need to seal the edges together. And I noticed that I hadn't done that, so I've come back and shown you that part of it. Just make sure that it's well sealed. If you don't, it can crack apart in the oven. Now, I'm going to flip this guy back over, form it into a nice rosca de Reyes, and cover it and let it rise. Okay, we made the dough, we let the dough ferment overnight, then we formed the rosca and let it rise, and now we're ready to do all of the decorations on the top. First thing that we have to do is to make this streusel. It's the same stuff that goes on the top of a concha, so we're starting off with some softened butter in a food processor. You could use a stand mixer for that if you wanted to, and I'm going to add some powdered sugar to that. And then a couple of teaspoons here of cinnamon. This could be any kind of flavor. Some people like to add cocoa powder to it or vanilla to it. But this one's going to be a cinnamon flavored one. And then we've got some flour that goes into it. And I'm going to put the top on this and just pulse it until it all comes together. And that's all we have to do for this one. I'm going to let that run for a little bit. I need egg wash. I've already beaten an egg with a tablespoon of water so that it just loosens up. Nothing fancy with that part of it there. So we'll move those guys out of our way here. This should come together as a sort of paste. That'll make it easier to work with. So you can see that that's ready to work with there. And now I've got the rosca. How do you know if it's ready? Well, first of all, I will say don't underproof this. Don't allow this to do its rising. When you touch it, it should have a gentle bounce back, but a slow bounce back. Now, the first thing that we're going to do with this, I'm just going to slide it right over here, is to press out some of this streusel so that we put that on first. Okay, so I've got plastic here. You could do this with a plate or anything, but tortilla press is used a lot in my kitchen, so I'm going to use a tortilla press. Take a ball of this that's about the size of a golf ball. That's where you're going to start here. Put it onto the plastic that lines the tortilla press, put the other piece of plastic on the top, gently press it down, and then press it with the tortilla press. Don't give too much pressure. You're looking for about that kind of width so that it will cover from one side to another of this. And then I'm just going to use a knife to square it up, but just very gently here and not completely squaring it up. I'm going to get rid of those 4 edges there. And then I'm going to unmold it just the way that I would unmold a tortilla from the plastic here. If you're doing this without a tortilla press, then of course you will be pressing it against the counter, usually with a plate so that it's evenly flat. But if you're going to unmold it easily from the plastic, it would be like that. Now the first place that I'm going to put this is right over the seam so that we cover that part of it up. But I told you that I had some egg wash here, but I just didn't put it on there yet. Okay, so now egg wash all around everything that you can see here. So I'm going around the center first, and then around the outer edge of it. This is to keep everything sticking on it, all of our decorations sticking on it, and to give it a really beautiful sheen when we're working with it. So unmold this onto my hand and then on here. And then I'm going to keep going until I've got all 4 corners of this done. The last one of these are the ones over the far ends there. I made a little longer and skinnier since we have this sort of oblong shape here. Okay, now we're finished with the streusel topping, and we're going to go on to what is the ate de membrillo or guayaba, the quince paste or the guava paste. And this is quite easily available in Mexican grocery stores. Quince paste is actually in very specialty grocery stores available all the time. And what I have here is the quince paste here, the guava paste here. So the guava paste came in a kind of funny roll. You'd think fruit leathers, but very thick. And I'm just kind of making that a little bit more even on the edges and then cutting some pieces of it longwise and then cutting those in half. Okay, so I'm going to put one of these now. That one kind of broke apart a little bit, but that will be fine. On the side of each of these here. And then we will do the the quince paste, same thing, cut long strips and then cut those guys in half. And I'm going to put those here on either side of these guys. Okay, and now we are ready to bake. Okay, so we've got more things to decorate with, but those are going to go on after we bring it out of the oven. So a fully proofed Rosca de Reyes, 350 degrees here, and I'm just going to slide this into the oven. It'll take about, I'm going to say 25 to 30 minutes to cook it. We'll come back and test it, and I'll show you what that's like when we're ready for it. Okay, I think this is a great payoff right here. It looks just a little not perfect because I don't make hundreds of these on a daily basis, but I can tell you that this is a beautiful one in my eyes, and also a really tasty recipe. Okay, so then we've got the last things that we're going to do. Maybe you want to talk about temping this to know that it's done. If you've got a good thermometer that is digital, you'll go in and you'll see it's about 200. This one's about 208 degrees or so. I would say around 205 is what you're looking for to make sure that it's fully done. And when you're working with these kinds of doughs that are kind of heavy like that, that can be really helpful. Okay, next things are these beautiful pieces of homemade candied citrus. We've got blood orange and regular orange and orange peel over here, all different kinds of things that we can use for that. So they're a little bit sticky, so we can just put them right on here. I'm going to take a couple of the pieces of regular orange and then a couple of the pieces of the blood orange to go there, and then make sure that they stick down nicely. And then some more of the candied orange peel. And you can just put them in anywhere that you want to put them, wherever there is some space for them there. I really love that. And then I think you can finish things off really beautifully with a little bit of powdered sugar here. So I'm going to put that on top of it. I always keep a little strainer by the powdered sugar so that I can reach in there, get some, and make a nice snowy top on anything. And there you have a very deluxe version of a rosca de Reyes. You didn't think I wasn't gonna taste it, right? Okay, so I just had to let it cool a little bit. I'm gonna take this piece that's got the streusel topping on it, and then I'm gonna, no sign of a baby yet. Okay. I wonder who's gonna make the tamales.